White isn't allowed to miss a single game. He has to cast everything that happens in StarCraft. Pretty much. I mean, that's what we've been doing for the past 3 years. I'm not gonna change now, Papi. I'm not gonna change now. And here we go, spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Neo Humanity. We have the Canadian Zerg player herself, representing Shopify Rebellion, going for an extractor trick in ZvP. We were just talking about it in the chat. It was just brought up. We have the Canadian Zerg player, Scarlett. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Neo Humanity, we have her opponent. We have the other Canadian player, the Canadian Protoss, representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. Let's go, Papi. Let's go. A fresh best of 3 is before us. A bit of NA on NA action. The best players in all of Canada. You love to see it. And yeah, as we were mentioning earlier, you know, with that extractor trick, Scarlett is able to go for that hatch first here on the low ground. Trigger showing up a little bit too late to deny that, so you love to see it, love to see it. Overall, a hatch gas pool nonetheless from Scarlett. And I'm always full of anticipation when I do see some of these games on some of the more unorthodox maps here. Game 1 already on Neo Humanity. We're popping off, man. We're popping off. And we'll see how this turns out. There are some pros and cons to this map. Typically, whenever we cast Neo Humanity, depending on the matchup, we smudge a little bit. We're like, you know, like it's so easy to turtle and to defend, and the Protoss or Terran player, they can get up to 4 bases relatively quickly and relatively easily, and it's a lot more on the Zerg player. It's the onus is on them to try and stop that from happening and to get an advantage early on. And that's true, but at the same time, I don't know if Trigger is that kind of player. I want to believe that he wants to be more active and more aggressive. The other added thing here is that Trigger and Scarlett, they play against each other quite often, so there can be some metagaming getting involved as well. They can be quite familiar with the tendencies of each other, and that's going to come into play not just this series, but also in the coming weeks, because ESL Masters is going to be coming upon us. I think it's like a week away. ESL Masters is basically the dream hack of this year, of 2023. So yeah, Scarlett and Trigger, they're going to be duking it out quite a bit this month. Oh, let's go. As Trigger pylon blocks the third base and he pro blocks the forward third as well. So going to be quite a nuisance here for Scarlett to eventually take her third. Is just forced to be delayed. And it is important to take note that she doesn't take the forward base here either, so we're not going to be seeing like a launch pad of creep being spread across the map for like an earlier roach push or even a queen push. At least not set up with this base. So everything's looking relatively normal here. Same can be said for Trigger. We do see a Stargate opener as well, no Twilight Council, so going for an Oracle first. We should be seeing a third base as well, and we are not mining these minerals, so it looks like Trigger will be opting not to go for the for the linear third, instead for the triangular one. So probe is moving out. And here at the sub 4 minute mark, Scarlett is already going to be throwing down a Roach Warren. This is a little bit earlier than is usually advised, so I'm curious to see if she's going to be making use of this. Interesting to throw down a Roach Warren this early on as well. Not an Evo chamber, so she's not going to be going for +1 melee. She's going to be going for a more Roach heavy composition, or at least that's what it looks like. The Oracle going to be dipping in towards that natural base. But the queens are in position, the spores are ready as well, and the Oracle doesn't really do much of anything. A little bit lucky here for Scarlett because, you know, we don't have a spore at the third or the main, so great kind of telegraphing here of where Trigger would go first. A great reading, I should say, of where Trigger would go first. And from here, Trigger is just setting up his third base. We already have our Sim City set up as well. These lings shouldn't find too much damage. And behind this, we have our Twilight Council and Forge. So a really standard setup from Trigger. Nothing too crazy, nothing coming out of left field. Oh, And based off of that Evo chamber as well, it looks like that Roach Warren was just for safety, just in case it was a Twilight Council opener and something was catching Scarlett off guard. Just want to be safe and sound. This does delay +1 melee. The Evo chamber is now thrown down, and this is going to be a little bit late, but regardless, it's still on the way, so it shows that Scarlett still wants to go for a more Lingbane heavy composition. Not as much on Roaches. Oh. Meanwhile, Trigger now finding some damage. Finally, here he goes into the third base, gets 4 drones, and gets out of there without losing a single one of these oracles. Earlier, Scarlett was doing a great job at defending, but now is being punished a little bit for not having a Spore here at her third. And after that happens, she gets a Spore in her main as well. She's like, yeah, nah. I gotta respect the oracles, man. It's plenty of sense. As Scarlett from this point is going to be double expanding, taking her 4th and 5th base. We have Roach speed on the way. There's that Bailey Nest as well. And yeah, I do kind of appreciate this here. Nothing too crazy from either player. And that's kind of what I want to be seeing. When I see 2 players the caliber of Trigger and Scarlett, like, you know, it's always fun to throw in some weird or random builds, but Scarlett is going to be cutting drones here at 67, has a massive swell of Lings, so with this Trigger, he can't really push in, he can't really contest any of these bases, has to respect this, not just because of the Lings, but also because of the Queens. The Oracles can't really do too much. And with this, Scarlett is going to be finding some uses for these Lings, going for a bit of a counterattack. The defenses back at home are looking quite solid. There is no shield battery at the natural, though. Yeah, and Scarlett does recognize that, is going to be forcing a reaction out of Trigger, is going to force him back home. Well, that gateway is actually getting pretty low here, and it looks like she's going to commit. The gateway is going to go down alongside that Stalker. Oh, and she may even force a cancel on this 4th base. A really lucky timing there as Scarlett heads towards that area and does find that 4th as it gets thrown down. So actually really great damage with these Lings. More than she really should have gotten with that cancel as well. And now she's getting ready back at home. We have our Roaches, we have more Lings on the way. The Lings immediately going for a bit of a counterattack. Stalkers are pushing in, taking advantage of the fact that there aren't as many Lings in position. As she goes to cancel the 4th once again. But there's nothing there. We're just warping across the map. +1 attack is done for Trigger. Pushing up this ramp, though, is going to be a bit of a tough ask, and he's going to be forced back. 44 Lings on the way again. Double expanding means we have that much more lava to work with for Scarlett. She may be a little bit supply blocked, but she has more than enough supply to defend. Not just defend, she's going for a surround. She realizes the Trigger is that much more committed, and she forces the blink. The Lings come in from behind, and there's nowhere for these Stalkers to go. We do have a Prism, so we can try to mic her out of this, but so many Stalkers are going down. And without a 4th base, we just don't have any longevity here. We don't have a follow-up. Trigger was so committed to this push. Up. And there is still no 4th base. From here, Scarlett, all she has to do is make an army. She's already at 82 workers. She has 5 bases. She's got +2 range on the way. And again, for as long as Trigger doesn't have a 4th base, she's fine to just keep making units and defend. And you know what? Scarlett wants more than that. She wants to cripple the economy of Trigger. We do have a warp in of Zealots here in towards the natural. It's going to be distracting Scarlett, but the Banelings, they just keep on rolling, and there's nothing here to defend. Trigger does react up, but it doesn't matter. The Banelings are just too many of them. They're headed for the mineral line. At the same time, the Stalkers are trying to bust on through. They're getting on top of the Ravagers, but they take bows to the face. The Banelings, they break on in, and they find the probes. They find everything, Bobby. +2 melee finishes just in time. 30 probes go down, and Trigger doesn't even break into any of these bases. The Zealots, they get cleaned up. We did lose a lot of Ravagers, but it wasn't enough. Trigger is all in at this point. And he just doesn't have really much left at all here. Like, he doesn't have the momentum, he doesn't have the economy, he doesn't have the Stalker count. The Lings on their own even are going to be threatening enough. But we have more than just Lings. We have the Roaches, we have the Ravagers. Oh my god. As we even walk into some of those biles, and Scarlett just has an overwhelming force. GG gets called, and Scarlett takes game number 1. Honestly, just having really great control throughout so much of that game. It was really great of her to also recognize as well that her opponent didn't have a fourth. If you remember, after she canceled the fourth the first time, she wrapped back around with her Lings, rechecking the fourth base and confirming that there was nothing there. So she just knew that, again, she didn't need to tech. Teching could have killed her even if she went up to a Hive and went up to Adrenal Glands with an Infestation Pit. Just staying on Lingbane, Roach Ravager, just keep making army. That's all she needed. GG. GG, well played. And now, we find ourselves in game number 2, and I brought this up earlier. I was talking about how I'm always really excited to cast some of these more unusual maps, and apparently that's all we have left. The vetoes were wild. Game 1, Near Humanity. Game 2, Altitude. Just the two polar opposites here. My god. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Altitude, we have the Canadian Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion. Currently leading this series 1-0, it is Scarlett. And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Altitude, we have her opponents. We have the Canadian Protoss representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. The map itself also coming into play as well on Near Humanity. Just because the map is so small and so short, counterattacks hit that much faster, and again, Scarlett's map presence and her Ling presence was just like accentuated that much more on Near Humanity, just putting so much pressure on Trigger and also getting all that scouting information. Just kind of great use of the map overall and being able to take advantage of those features. Meanwhile, now we're on the polar opposite. Now we're in the snow in the mountains, in the Altitude, the largest map in the map pool, plenty of bases to take. They're all spread out as well, a lot more vulnerable because of that. But because it's so large, you can also maybe focus on your defense as well. Oh my god! Scarlett! GG! Forces the recall! She trapped the probe! Oh my god! Wow! How often do you see that? I love that Trigger sprayed as well. Like, there's no bad blood between them, you know, they're good friends in the NA scene, but that was amazing. That was amazing. Oh my god. Scarlett already with a little bit of a win there, forcing the probe to recall back home after being trapped by that spawning pool. And yeah, not the biggest of deals, but a bit of a moral win, you know. I feel like Scarlett's probably laughing to herself. Trigger is as well, I imagine. See, I've literally never seen that, right? I haven't seen that before either. Crazy, crazy. Oh my god. Hey, that's what you get for trying to steal my minerals. Behind this standard opener, we're going into a Stargate. Should be going to Oracles. Nothing crazy. Just we gotta calm down after what just happened. Alright, and here we go. Scarlett just going hatch gas pool. Gonna be going for a third base on time as well. Again, because this map is so large, we shouldn't really be seeing anything too crazy when it comes to the openers. I do know that there are some Protoss players that try to take advantage of this and take advantage of how large this is with proxies, for example. We have seen proxy Glaive Adept before. I say before, a couple of days ago, actually. Feels Cham, man. Cham did kind of get caught off guard with that in WTL a couple of days ago, but here, Trigger, he's just playing a little bit more standard, a little bit more straight up. You love to see it. Beautiful. I think Firefly's build is going to scar me for the rest of my life. For those who didn't watch WTL, Firefly, he went for a Stargate opener, went Oracle first, straight into a Twilight Council with a proxy gateway across the map into 6-gate Glaive Adept. It was absolutely disgusting. And Sham had no idea. He was droning. He had like 10 Lings to defend. Like, he had very little. He was busy droning. He didn't have a Roach Warren. Only had Queens and Lings to defend, and it was brutal to watch. It was absolutely insane. But again, Trigger is not that kind of Protoss. First Oracle's just getting across the map, confirming the third base, at least. Focusing down some Larva, not too bad. Some damage being done. As the Queens are going to be repositioning. Looks like Scarlett was anticipating the Oracle to go into the main, but is going to be rotating over towards the natural instead. Trigger just trying to be as annoying as possible here. But doesn't find too much. As behind this, we have our second Oracle coming out. We have our third Oracle on the way. A little bit of a supply block. Not ideal here. Not the biggest of deals, but is going to slow down that third Oracle. That means that this third base is going to be that much more vulnerable. The Oracle's going to be zooming across the map. Oh, no Spore here at the third base. More drones are going to be going down. 5 in total. Meanwhile, the Lings are going for that counterattack. No hold position. No Trigger. The Adepts were not on hold position. Because of the supply block, the third Oracle is late as well. It's still on the way. And that small mistake is becoming a really big one. This is too much. The Oracles have to come back home, but they don't have that much energy left. Oh, no. Is it just over? I mean, the Oracle finally comes out, and finally this is going to get cleaned up, but this is so much damage so early on. Behind this, we have a lair. We have an we don't have an infestation, but we have a Nidus Worm on the way. Scarlett's going to be going all in with Ling Queen. Again, taking advantage of the situation that Trigger has found himself in. I like how as it was happening, I'm like, oh, he's supply block. It's okay, it's not a big deal unless... Oh, never mind. The Lings are coming, Papi. And the Adepts weren't on hold position. With this, we have a Nidus into the main base. Unscattered, by the way. Trigger sees nothing in the main. Lings are going to be punishing that front wall here. Another Nidus at the natural, and the Queens have arrived. Oh... Trigger, everything just snowballing, going from bad to worse here. The boys are being pulled, the production is being camped. Nothing else will come out from this Stargate. Meanwhile, the Lings don't break into the natural. The wall was held quite well, but they don't care about the natural. They're going for the third. Meanwhile, the main is also compromised. The boys are being pulled, but the Queens plug up that wall. And we have cannons and shield batteries. Sure, that's great and all. But we're losing just a little bit too much. A lot of Lings were cleaned up at the third base, to be fair. But the Queens are not falling. We have Transfuse. We have another Nidus. We have a third Nidus on the way as well. The Oracles, they just spent so much of their energy cleaning up those Lings earlier. And they just can't deal with the Queens. We have Blink on the way, Papi, but I don't know if it's going to finish. The Nidus finishes in the natural as well. No shield battery at the natural either, and all these probes are going to go down. Scarlett just escalating so quickly. GG gets called, and Scarlett takes the series 2-0. Ay, ay, ay. GG. GG, well played. That was such a rough game for Trigger. Like, so many little things were going wrong for him that game. It all started with the probe being recalled. It followed up with what was happening at the third base with the Oracles as well. So everything just went so well for Scarlett because the Adepts weren't on hold position, because they were being surrounded, and because the third Oracle was delayed. Both Oracles that were across the map had to come back home, and that meant that Trigger couldn't scout, right? It's usually those Oracles that are dipping between the bases, dipping between the mineral lines, doing damage, but also confirming the gas count, confirming the drone count, confirming any kind of tech. And because they had to turn back around, that's why he didn't see anything coming. That's why he wasn't able to get eyes on that Nidus, and Scarlett was able to just take advantage of Trigger entirely. That was crazy. GG. GG.